With the celebration of World Breastfeeding Week in August, some South African mothers are encouraged to donate their breast milk to others, as it is a key intervention that can save the lives of at-risk low birth weight infants. World Breastfeeding Week kicked off on Sunday with the theme "Protect Breastfeeding, a Shared Responsibility." Now let's discuss this. We're joined via Zoom by Stasha Jordan, Executive Director and founder of South African Breastmilk Reserve. Thank you so much for your time, ma'am, this afternoon, and a warm welcome to you on the show.
Good afternoon, and happy World Breastfeeding Week.
Fantastic. Now, let's talk about this fascinating concept of women who are not necessarily breastfeeding but can actually donate breast milk. Speak to me about how long this has been ongoing, and also, do a lot of women actually know about this?
So donating breast milk is actually an age-old practice. There have been various forms of milk sharing throughout the millennia. So from wet nursing to informal milk sharing, then there is human milk banking. So human milk banking in 2021 and for the last 2 decades has, from our point of view, focused primarily on the extremely low birth weight and very low birth weight babies that are born and that usually get admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit. So we're talking about the 500-gram baby, the 600-gram baby whose mommy is unable to breastfeed for a variety of medical reasons, usually such as in the case of the pandemic, COVID had an impact on women in their third trimester, and some of mummies demised as a consequence. And this is where human milk banking played a role in supporting babies that otherwise would be at high risk of sepsis, and sepsis is a medical term for infection, and necrotizing enterocolitis, which is an infection of the gut, which often results in the death of the premature baby. So donated breast milk is used as an emergency intervention to meet the gap until mommy can breastfeed her own baby. So we are not a substitute for maternal lactation. We are attempting to augment lactation by bridging the gap when mom is not available.
Now, the reason I ask if a lot of women knew about this is obviously a very important practice. You know, when you take weeks like this, Breastfeeding Week, and its symbolism, how much of an awareness have you really garnered during this time? Are you seeing a lot of, women who are not necessarily, as I said before, with child and are not necessarily breastfeeding, donating their breast milk? And how would you rate the kind of an awareness that this week provides in such an important practice for women?
Well, it's a very specific niched activity in healthcare, human milk banking, that really targets a population group that becomes aware of it only if a parent has a baby and the baby is premature. We engage in a lot of breastfeeding activism all throughout the year. So the question is, how mainstream is breastfeeding? And we hope to make breastfeeding more mainstream rather than necessarily human milk banking. We want mothers to breastfeed their babies because that is a food security strategy. And we hope to encourage women that are not breastfeeding to support other women that are breastfeeding. In this, we're trying to build advocacy, and our efforts are growing at a slow pace. As I say, it becomes more relevant if you are the parent of a premature baby. And that is a very, very minute portion of our population.
Now, you mentioned COVID-19 very briefly. Of course, this Breastfeeding Week does come during a pandemic. I mean, is it safe, first of all, for moms who would like to donate during this time?
Yes, it's very safe. We actually have seen an incline in our breast milk donations. We nearly doubled our impact in the last 12 months, reaching 6,000 babies, and we have collected a lot more breast milk than we did in the past. Mothers are definitely breastfeeding, and breastfeeding is a practice that is growing. We must all realize that we have disenfranchised breastfeeding through aggressive marketing of formula and other strategies that for decades have disempowered lactation amongst our mothers. So it's work in progress, and it is slow work, but we are winning.
And then talk to me about some of the myths and the stereotypes about a breast milk donation. I mean, already we know that we're already dealing with stereotypes just around mothers who are breastfeeding in public. I would imagine that the donation stereotypes and the myths are as prevalent.
Well, we would like to think that we have overcome a lot of the myths and the stereotypes. Usually donated breast milk is seen as medicine in the ward. So mothers are in fact rewarded for donating, and we are not seeing as much of a stereotype as we have in other instances, for instance, as in the context of breastfeeding and HIV. In fact, breast milk donors are often celebrated both at the hospital level and by us when they donate. We do recognize that mothers that breastfeed are generally bullied in our societies, in our workplaces, in our shopping malls. Because we have to protect and promote and support breastfeeding, we understand that there is a certain group of people that are not necessarily pro-breastfeeding. However, the value of breastfeeding is enormous, both to full-term children as well as to premature babies. And we have to protect breastfeeding mothers in our communities.
All right, thank you so much for your time. That was Stasha Jordan, Executive Director and founder of South African Breast Milk Reserve. Thank you so much for your time.